Hello everyone and welcome to today's talk. We're going to be speaking about the fifth dimension. So we know there are, in Jewish thought, there's actually three core dimensions. You've got the Sefer Yetzirah, one of the earliest Kabbalistic works. Some people say that Adam wrote it himself or Abraham did. It's a very, very old book. And it's a very terse, very concise, sort of full of Kabbalistic concepts, and it speaks about three types of dimensions, which are called Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. Olam means literally universe, which means space. Shana means a year, which refers to time, and Nefesh is the soul. So the way we picture the world, we've got the world of space, which is made of three dimensions. If you want the height and depth, then you've got width and length of any object. It's got those three attributes. And then you have time. That means you can have an object which has got three dimensions, but it can exist in multiple different points in time. And then, so that's the fourth dimension, the second general dimension of time, but it's actually a fourth dimension because the physical dimension has three. The fourth one will be time, and the fifth one is basically you can have a physical object in one point in time, right? But then there's something else. There's another set of there's another axis. There's another sort of range of reality, which is called the soul axis, or the axis between which is good or bad, the spiritual physical axis, if you want to put it like that. So just like you've got north and south are the two opposites in terms of physical, then you've got east and west, right? And then you've got up and down, then you've got the past and the future, whatever the two, those are the two directions on the fourth line of the axis. And the fifth one would be evil and good and evil, right? And the idea is that the holiest thing, or the most spiritual thing, the most abstract thing will be at the top end, and the most evil or the most physical thing will be at the bottom end. It's a bit more complex than that, but that's a general principle. So now we want to look at this new axis of soul and physicality. Obviously, you could probably guess already on this axis, you've got things like the soul and the body. The soul is something which is more internal. It's higher up, so to speak, spiritually. And you've got the body, which is more physical, it's lower down. But there's many different levels in between. We've already spoken about the three souls of the human body, the mind soul, the whole heart soul, which is emotional, the physical soul, which keeps things alive, and then you've got the body, of course, right? And then we even extended that when we spoke about the four exiles. We introduced the idea of a fourth soul, which is the godly soul. That when we spoke about the four exiles, we said that the mankind, or the Jewish people specifically, but mankind as a whole, goes through four different stages of spirituality, of a spiritual dominance of one of the four souls. You've got the physical, the emotional, the autonomous self one, the intellectual one. That was the whole idea about Greece. Greece is the spiritual, intellectual one, and then you got the godly soul, or the holy soul, which is the fourth one, which we explained. That's what the Jewish people are trying to get back in the exile which we're in now, the Roman exile or the Edomite exile. Okay, so you can already see, and if you think in terms of you've got the physical world, then you've got the spiritual worlds, the worlds where the angels are, then you've got the world of God's names and things like that, and then you go very high. Eventually you get the earliest thing which we can talk about is God's original primary revelation to us, which is God's will, Yeah, and then you can't really put God on the axis because God transcends all dimensions. So the highest thing we can speak about is God's first revelation. He reveals himself as the ultimate creator, the creator of everything which is above time and space. Okay, right, so let's see some nice examples of this, and we'll see lots of different parallels. It's very beautiful. So it's not such a deep fundamental, well, compared to the other ones, it's quite deep, this, but it won't be so taxing on the mind. It's not too abstract, this. So we'll see how like many different ideas correlate with these five levels which we're going to speak about. So the idea is that you're going to have the two extremes of the axis. You've got the ultimate good and the ultimate bad. Then you've got something in the middle, which would be sort of like the balance. We'll do it this way. So we've got 5 fingers. By the way, that's why we've got 5 fingers, because it's all based on number 5 here. 2 sets of 5, 2 sets of the 10 commandments on 2 sets of 5. This pattern repeats itself. It's all based on another paradigm we haven't spoken about, but we're going to be touching on this paradigm of the number 5 here. I'm going to see, maybe you can see how things reflect in the Torah or in the world we live in. So you've got the central one, which is sort of like not good or bad, it's just bang in the middle. Then you've got one side, you've got complete good, and then you've got complete bad, and then you've got sort of something in between. You've got a bit good, but not. It's more good than neutral, but it's not perfect good. And then over here you've got more bad than neutral, but it's not complete bad. So if you think about this, it's like an axis. You mentioned you've got the center of the axis here, and you've got the lines going from good to bad there, whatever. Or, you know, it's a bit confusing because my hand's back to front from the camera. So, right. You generally think of the right side as the one with the positive axis. So let's have a look at some examples. Right, so we've got the idea of 5 different levels of a human being. You can have a person who is a Rosha. A Rosha is an evil person. You can have a Beinoni. Oh, by the way, these 5 are actually made up of 2 sets of 3, if you think about it. You've got good, evil, and you've got the balance, and then you make these 2 pivots, and you try bringing the harmony between them, with the balance between neutral and evil and neutral and good. You get something which is a bit of each. Okay, just for those who are interested in see how it fits in with the idea of the big archetype, the quintessential archetype, which we spoke about a few weeks ago. Right, so we've got 5 levels of righteousness of human beings. You can have they're broken down into 3 categories, but then you've got sort of, remember, you've got the second and the fourth in the hierarchy as well. So you've got righteous, that means a person who's a perfect person, a holy person, always does the right thing. Then you have the person who's absolutely evil, and then you've got the person who's got the balance between the 2. He's being pulled both ways from by his good and evil inclination. Then you have something called a tzaddik she'eno gomer and a rasha she'eno gomer. That means a not complete righteous one and a not complete evil person. So let's go through them. So we'll start at the bottom. A rasha gomer is someone who is so evil, we would call him a sociopath. That means someone who just does bad and he doesn't feel any regret on anything he does. Yeah, he just does evil as a matter of, yeah, that is my baseline, that is my default. He is just evil. Then you've got someone who's a Rosh She'ena Gomer. This is a person who does sin, and he repetitively sins. I mean, and remember, this is a sliding scale. You have someone who's maybe once in a while sins, right? Right, we're talking about more serious sinning here, like doing it sort of on purpose, right? So the person, the temptation gets the better of him, but then when he fails the test and he sins, he feels bad about it, and he thinks he should do better, but then it's so nice, the feeling of sinning, whatever that sin has to be, maybe. So he's a Rosh Hashanah Gomer. He's an incomplete, wicked person, evil person. Yeah. Then we've got the Bainani. The Bainani is a person who doesn't do evil, right? But he's got a strong pull to evil, but he makes sure he keeps it sort of in place, right? Right. So therefore, the element of evil within him is there, but it's not active. So it's potential evil, but without practical evil. So that's what we are calling the balance in this set of 5. Then you've got the tzaddik she'eino gomer. We've got a person who basically doesn't have an inclination to do evil. He knows what good and bad is, and obviously I'm going to do good. Okay, and remember this can come out in many different flavors. You can have a person who's very good in treating other people well, right? But when it comes to maybe waking up in time for prayers or something like that, he might be down here. When it comes to being nice and smiling at people and helping people and caring about people, he might be very high, and you might get someone who's the other way around, right? So each one of these levels, you can't really categorize individuals into one of these 5 categories, black and white, because some people, for some things they'll be maybe up here, and some people be, but for other things they'll literally be down there. So it's kind of a scale. It depends on the person. Everyone's very complex, right? So the 4th level is the paradigm we're talking about here. The archetype is that someone who does good, right? And he is essentially good. He's a tzaddik. A tzaddik means a righteous person, but it's not complete. Why? Because there is something still lying under the surface. There is evil there, but it's completely squashed down, and it doesn't really tempt him anymore, right? He's eliminated the evil, but the evil is still there, bubbling under the surface. So there is some sort of vulnerability there. The 5th level is when a person's got to such a high level where not only is evil not an antagonist for him or a temptation, he actually manages to transform evil and make it good, which is an incredible idea. I think we might have touched on this in the previous lecture, yes, about lishma, the idea of doing something for the right reasons. For example, even when something as physical as eating, that comes from the negative side of us, that's a physical temptation. But using that to help you fulfill the commandments is a very praiseworthy thing, because you're actually taking something physical and you're elevating it, you're making it part of your way of serving Hashem. Okay, so that's the basic paradigm. Now we're going to see 4 examples where we see this actually come out. 2 of them are in the Jewish year. So we're going to see there's 5 stages to the Jewish year, and we see that it actually corresponds to these 5 levels. We're going to bring another one right now, and right at the end we'll show how these 5 stages actually span across all of time, from the beginning of time to the end of time, and we'll see how that comes into it. Okay, so Ramendel Kessen, he sort of brought these 5 ideas here. It's probably based on the Ramchal, I assume. I haven't seen it inside myself, but I'll say it anyway quickly. He said you've got 5 types of people. You can have someone who is, let's start with the middle person. The middle person is just a normal human being. He's not good or bad, right? He just functions like a normal, moral human being, right? Doesn't kill, doesn't steal. He realizes the basics, yeah. But yeah, he's attached to the physical world. They got someone who's below that. Someone we'd categorize more like an animal. An animal is someone who's completely selfish, right? Someone who, if you can steal something, he'll take it. If you can get away with it. We had, I'm not going to mention any countries. We had a cleaner here once, and we noticed that something was missing. And eventually, we did in a nice way to get her to admit that she took it. They said, "Oh yes, in my country, the rule is if you can get away with it, you take it, right?" So, different mentality. That's a very selfish sort of mentality. It was actually near Greece, actually, that country, come to think of it. So it ties in with our Greece one. Please don't guess which country it is. Don't want to insult any whole populations here. But anyway, so that's the idea of people who are more like animals than humans. It doesn't have to be in a negative way. It's only negative because we know the potential of humans. But it's self-preservation. Yeah. They might even kill someone if it means they can take their food so they can survive, so they can eat. Yeah. But it's done with some sort of calculation. It's just like an animal would do. Animals are carnivorous animals. They kill other animals in order to sustain themselves. Right. Then you have the fifth level. So I want you to work out yourself, see how these 5 levels fit in with the 5 levels I said at the beginning. You'll see they parallel each other. The fifth level is something he calls sub-animal. That means it's even worse than an animal. If you remember my lecture about the root of evil and different types of evil, it's the idea of taking something which should have a hierarchy, one thing should be dominant over the other, and it's flipped upside down. So this is kind of how you get this. Because an animal is basically, you've just got the animalistic part of the body, but you don't have a spiritual part. Okay, so some people just cut out the spiritual aspect of their being. They're literally like animals. Maybe some primitive tribes might be like this, where it's just a matter of everything survival and everything like that, right? But the soul itself doesn't really come into it. Now, a person who's on the fifth level, he's called sub-animal. He's less than an animal. Why? Because at least an animal, it just sticks to its nature. A person whose animal aspect is so dominant, and then it manipulates the spiritual aspect, then it becomes an idealistic animal. And we mentioned there's a certain people who fit in that category. I'm not mentioning them here. The ones who take their spirituality and they use it as an excuse to act like animals, but they go beyond what an animal would normally do. So, for example, people who kill people for sport, yeah, they just kill them, no need, right? So, as we said, like psychopaths, sociopaths, people who do all sorts of types of evil only to inflict pain, right? To just cause suffering to others, right? Animals don't do that. Animals, when they cause suffering, it's for a reason, it's for a selfish reason. Here, it's just for a malevolent reason. It's just to cause suffering and bad in the world. And animals are not capable of doing that. Only humans who have got this sort of potentially holy soul can actually flip it down, and that massive potential can be used for evil, and they can become super animalistic or even worse than an animalistic person. These are people who like torturing people just for fun, sadists. Okay, right. So we have those lower 3 now. So we've got the sub-animal, then we've got the animalistic people, then you've got the sort of humans, normal functioning humans. Then you've got righteous. Then you've got righteous people. Righteous people, this is the 4th level up, or 2nd from the top. Righteous people don't just act in a way where society can function and everyone sort of can live harmoniously. They go out of the way. They understand the sort of the ideals of the fact that we're more than just animals, which can agree to get on with each other. People do charity. They go out of their way to help people. They focus on bringing good into the world, right? This is really the purpose of the non-Jews in the world. This is really what we're talking about. Their job is to make a world which is not just functioning. It's a world of goodness and happiness. Everyone should be happy, moral, and just bring levels of goodness to the world. That's called righteousness, and the word tzaddik means righteous. So that's a fourth level. Then you've got a fifth level. So remember, we said the fourth level is basically completely righteous. There's no element of evil in them. They might have something bubbling under the surface, but essentially they're very good people. Then you've got the fifth level. The fifth level is we're going to see the difference between the fourth and fifth level is very subtle. You're going to see this with some of the other examples as well. The fifth level is the idea of not just being good and righteous. That's very good. But you're not happy just being perfectly good. You want to try elevating the evil in the world and making it good. And this resonates with most of my lectures I've been speaking about, especially the first one. The idea of taking the evil in the world, taking the darkness and using it as a vessel, as a conduit to bring in more light. As we said, the example of a person eating, that's what, and this is really the job of the Jewish people. The job of the Jewish people is not just to make a functioning society, a positive society where there's peace and harmony, and there's goodness, there's righteousness, there's kindness. That's obviously Jews have to do that as well. It can't be less than that. But the job of the Jewish people is to bring in holiness. The idea of holiness is awareness of God, right? So even on the fourth level, you need to have some sort of awareness that there is a certain abstract moral goodness to the world. You have to know there's a God, for example, right? To be on the fourth level, or at least feel it within oneself. But the fifth level, you're actually using a power. You're bringing that light into the physical, and you're actually changing the physical to become spiritual. And as we said, this is why it's very subtle, because you can't see the effects of it here, because the effects of this bringing the spirituality into the physical, and actually not just suppressing any evil, not just law and order, making sure that there's a functioning society without any crime or evil or cruelty, make sure everyone's being taken care of. That's not good enough. You've actually got to take anything which is potentially evil or actually evil or something which is physical, you've got to imbue it with holiness. That's why the Jewish people have hundreds of commandments. That's only the basic commandments. The actual number of individual commandments, each one breaks down. But I've actually got here, people might be interested actually. Right, this is called the Shulchan Aruch. Usually this is about that big, but this one's been condensed because it doesn't have any of the commentaries in it. So if you have a look at this, just look at one law here. Which one's this one? Right, there's one to do with, that's an interesting one. Okay, let's do one which people might appreciate. Right. Okay. So this is to do with the laws of making the phylacteries, the tefillin, which we put on. We see this is just one of the laws here. It's quite a detailed one. This because it's relatively long. Compared, no, it's not. There's about 3 or 4 different ones here. Sorry. Yeah. So what do you do if the letters start to fade? That's one law there. Yeah, and you've got hundreds of them, and you got this whole chapter here with I think just to make tefillin, I think there's 3,000 different laws involved, each one to do with a different aspect of the straps and the boxes, the scrolls. Yeah. So we look at how big that was. That's we're talking about 1,700 odd chapters, and each chapter is going into in great detail in all the commandments. So this is what we're talking about. So when you make the tefillin, it has to be with leather straps, and it has to be a certain color, it has to be made in a certain way, it has to be a certain thickness. Each one of these things has a spiritual significance. It actually does something to bring different spiritual lights into the physical. And once everything's done correctly, then when a person wears them, it actually brings a certain spiritual light. Literally, I think you'd have to look this up yourself, but I think there's something called an aura. There's a certain auras around people which you don't see, but they're on the electromagnetic sort of like spectrum outside the color the range which normal humans can see. I think, but you've got certain devices which can actually detect these auras, and you actually see an incredible thing when a person puts on tefillin. There's actually a new aura created around his head. It's like a white aura. It's very interesting. Whereas a person's not wearing them, you just wouldn't have that. It shows different examples of people doing certain of the commandments where actually you literally have some light shining around them, which ties in with what we said, that really when we do the commandments in this world, we are bringing the light of God in. We're living in the world to come, theoretically, just as a barrier for us not to experience it. So this might be kind of a bit of the light seeping in, right? There's a story I remember someone told me. I can't remember how it ended up. There was a person I think he was a Jewish person, and I think he was not religious, and he was in the Far East in some sort of monastery or something, right? And the whole story, and then he became religious, and I think he then went back. I've probably got the details wrong, but I'm trying to get through to the idea anyway. But I think the story goes that he went back for some reason, and one of the monks, these monks meditated the whole day and stuff like that. Some of them could see auras, right? And then he saw a person this Jew took an apple off the tree, he ate it. Now before and then the person said, "What did you just do? You just said a few words. What did you just tell me? What you just did?" So what do you mean? I said, okay, when Jewish people, when they eat something beforehand, they make a blessing. So I made the blessing on the apple, whatever it was. It's the one who blessed is God, who creates the fruits of the tree, and I blessed it. They ate it. So he said, you don't understand. This is incredible. I've never seen this happen before. Usually, what happens is when things are attached to the tree or something, they have a certain aura, and once they're picked, they lose that aura, right? When you said the blessing, I saw the aura come back. I think maybe it was even a greater aura than the one on the tree. I can't, again, look up Zamir Cohen. He's got an amazing book called The Coming Revolution, if you can afford it. It's quite a big book. It's a beautiful book. There's a lot of lovely pictures in it, and it's some amazing genius which you see in the mitzvahs of the Torah, the commandments. You see actually having effects in the physical world and certain knowledge. I'm intending to do a series on the idea of the knowledge of the Torah, of which we see in nature and things like this. But yeah, so he's got a whole chapter there all about these auras, and quite incredible idea. So I only know roughly about it. Just spoke to someone about it and quickly looked at the chapter. So I'm not an expert in any way, but you've got this idea of when a person does the commandments, this is specifically for Jews here, they're able to bring in certain lights and actually take something physically and transform it spiritually. You're elevating it onto a spiritual plane. That's the unique job of the Jews. Non-Jews don't have this power. That's not their job. We've got this job, so we're given this power. But of course, it's very dangerous because, just like we said, a human which goes wrong can go to the other side and become very evil. That means, unfortunately, that Jews who don't use this amazing power can actually cause great corruption in the world. So it's not everything's in balance. Yeah? Everyone's got the choice, good or bad. So anyway, that's the idea of the 5 levels of, you've got sub-animal, animal, human, righteous, and then you've got holy. Okay. Obviously, these English words are a bit clumsy, but you get the idea. The holy, the idea of bringing holiness into the physical. Okay. So now let's do something interesting. Let's look at the Jewish year. Let's try bringing this up. There we go. Right. Now, this is basically the Jewish calendar. Well, it's not the calendar, it's the 12 Jewish months. For those who don't know the Jewish calendar, it actually says here only in leap years. The Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, which means it's only got 354 days in the year, which means it's going to be 11 days shorter than the solar calendar. But there's a commandment in the Torah to make sure that the solar and the lunar calendars are aligned more or less. Right? Unlike the Muslim calendar, where I think Ramadan can fall out any time of the solar year, which is like a 34-year cycle. It goes through every English month. Whereas the Jewish calendar, we're commanded to unify the solar and the lunar calendar. We might have mentioned this once before. Right, so we'll start with Elul, right? So these are the names of the 12 months. This is the first month, Nisan. You can have a look at the different festivals or events which happen in these months. But we'll start with Tishri, which is Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. Please don't ask why the New Year is the 7th month. The way we look at the year is actually 2 halves. You've got you got the male half of the year, and then you've got the female half. Again, everything's split into 2s in Judaism, as we explained. Right. So in this half of the year, let's start off with Elul. Okay, and we got the rest of the year. So basically, for those who don't know, the idea of Elul is we start blowing the shofar. That's the ram's horn every day in Elul. Different communities have different customs, whether to do it the whole month or just everyone does the blowing the horn, the ram's horn. That's meant to wake people up to repent. Rosh Hashanah is the day where we get judged, basically. That's the first day of the year. God decides whether he's going to start the creation all over again for another 12 months. People think that that time is linear. It's really just a cycle of 12 months, which just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. Right? And God, at the end of the year, the end of Elul, God says, well, that's the end of the world. But I created the world for a reason. It hasn't come to its perfection yet. Is it worth carrying on? And that's what happens on Rosh Hashanah, where we do a very, very important service. We pray like a large section of the day, many, many hours. We blow the shofar. Right? And then we have Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, I'm sure people have heard of this one. Yom Kippur is the fast day. That's the day where we're like angels. We fast the whole day, and that's where we get atonement for the sins of the previous year. And then, unfortunately, it doesn't have it here. Then it's got Sukkot or Sukkos. Sukkos is the festival of tabernacles, where we shake the lulav and the esrog, the four species, and we dwell in huts. Okay. So the idea is like this. This maybe will speak to the more Orthodox Jewish audience who actually recognize this cycle in their lives, but anyone can appreciate it. So what happens after the high holy days? Then you've got Cheshvan, you've got the month with nothing in it, and then you go back to normal throughout the year. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a leap year this year, so we can have this extra month here, right? And then and we're slumbering through the whole year. We're stumbling through life, and we get to Elul. Elul, oh, wake up! The ram's horn. It's Elul. Wake up! What are we doing? We've lost direction in our life. We've got to think about where we're going. What are we trying to achieve in our life? Are we better than we were last year? So we start to wake up a bit. Then when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Tishri, then we actually do this. We spend the whole day. Basically, the secret of Rosh Hashanah is basically we are declaring God as the King, as the only power in the universe, the sole creator, the sole being who runs the world, and the one who runs the world for his. Oops. Oh, I can do this, can I? All right. Yeah. You want to see me? Hello. Oh, right. Yeah. Right. That we serve God for. We basically make him the king. It's like a coronation, basically. And then Yom Kippur, we do the fasting. And on Sukkos, we take all these branches and the citron fruit. So what's the idea? So the whole year round, we're kind of sleeping. We're not even aware of what we're doing. Then we get to Elul. Elul, we wake up. But still people, they do their... They carry on with their negative actions, their negative attitudes, their bad character traits, etc. Right? But at least we've woken up a bit. Okay. Right, maybe we should. Okay. Right, okay. Right. So hopefully you got that in your head. Okay. So you got the rest of the year we're kind of asleep. That's like out of the 5 levels where we're completely asleep, like the completely evil person. He's not even aware what he's doing. We just get caught up with life's what life throws at us, and we just forget where we're going. Then we've got Elul. Then we still kind of like a bit reluctant to make a whole upheaval in our life, but we're aware. We know deep down we should be changing, and the better the person, the earlier he'll start making concrete changes and actually doing some soul searching. Then we get to Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, we've still normal human beings. We've still got temptation, but we realize, okay, this is the day where our whole year is dependent on. We're making God the King of the universe, so therefore our total focus is just on God. So we've got temptation still, but no one does anything wrong on Rosh Hashanah. You don't get anyone sinning on Rosh Hashanah. If they do, they're not in touch with what Rosh Hashanah is all about. Yeah. But there's the temptations there, but you just make sure you're behaving your best, sort of. When it comes to Yom Kippur, that's a day where we're like angels, right? This is the 4th level. We don't eat, we don't drink, right? So we totally, in fact, the rabbis say that all right, don't ask a question about the lunar year here, but the gematria of Hasatan, of the Satan, which is the one who brings evil and temptation into the world, the numerical value is 364. Why is that the number? Because 365 days in a year, remember, on average, even the lunar calendar averages out to 365 days, like the solar calendar. So 364 days, he's got power, but there's one day of the year he doesn't have any power, which is in Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we're in such a high level, we don't eat, we don't drink, we don't have marital relationships, we don't have anything which is physical. We don't wear shoes, we don't even wash, right? Any physical pleasure at all is completely gone. So we're sort of living like literally for that one day. It's the holiest day of the year, but we're going to see it's a bit more complicated than that. in terms of spirituality, it's the most spiritual day of the year. We're just at the end of the Yom Kippur. Yeah? People have been fasting 25 odd hours. No one's hungry. Yeah, well, you can't speak for everyone, right? But people who are really living the day, it's not just they've got a temptation, but I'm not going to eat. I really want to eat now, and I've got to fight it. I'm going to win the battle though. People don't have a real temptation for evil at all on Yom Kippur. That's the idea. The Satan, the evil inclination. Satan's got many forms. One of them is inside of us. That's evil inclination. The Satan generally refers to the one who puts stumbling blocks in the world outside of us. But it's the same angel which does that. The angel of death, it's the same one as angel of death as well. Might speak about that one day. So in Yom Kippur, we not only do we not have a fight against evil, we don't even have the temptation. A person's in the Eilah, the last prayer, he's just totally focused on the connection with God. Someone give him food, get that away from me. Not that, I really want it. No, get it away. It's just like chalk and cheese. What are you doing? Of course you don't. Temptation's completely gone. So how can you get higher than that? Surely this is what most people will say, is this is the pinnacle of spirituality. But there's another level. Of course, you've got the fifth level. You've got the level where you transform the physical into spiritual. And that's the idea of Sukkos. Sukkos, we take the 4 species. Let's see if I can get a picture of them so you appreciate them. Here we go. These are the 4 species. This is the long one in the middle. That's a palm branch. That's a lulav. And then you've got the... I hope you can see the arrow I'm pointing with here. Yeah. Okay. Then you've got the hadassim. These are the myrtles. And then you've got the arovos, which are the willow tree. And then you've got the citron, which is the estrog, which is upside down. It should be pointing upwards. Okay, whatever. Now, the idea of these 4 species is very interesting. One of the ideas behind them, they're all mentioned in the Torah explicitly, and I think it's in Leviticus, the end of chapter 23, where it goes through all the festivals. This is the very last one. You should take for yourself on the first day, pre-eitz hadar, a beautiful fruit, kapos tumorim, that's the lulav, anaf eitz avos, the braided branches, which is referring to the myrtles, v'arvei nochal, and willows of the river. Okay, so if you have a look at them, I don't know if anyone who's very perception has got it already. These actually mimic or even look like the 4 primary drives of evil in a person. Where does all evil start from? That's from your choosing, your desires. That's the heart. Yeah, the estrog looks like a heart. It's a heart shape. You've got the approximately. Okay, and then so that's the place where the desires come from. Then you've got the body, which actually carries out the actions of doing the wrong things. And that's represented by the lulav, which represents the spine. The spine's long, thin, which travels all the way up. There's different ideas about where exactly, you can't see the top of the lulav here, but it's actually meant to go higher than these 2, which is the idea that the spinal cord goes all the way to the back of the head. Right. When you hold the lulav and the estrog should be corresponding. It should be sort of like, should be like over here. So you've got the estrog is meant to be held like this. The lulav you hold here. The lulav goes up, right? And you've got these other 2 species, the hadassim and the arovos, the myrtles and the willows, sort of go up to like here. But the lulav transcends them. It has to be a certain height above them, representing the idea that you're transcending the physical. You're going into the brain stem. That's the lulav there. Then what are the 2 other tools of sin? Is going after people's eyes, Yeah, do not go after your eyes and your heart. It says in Leviticus chapter 15 at the end, right? The two sarsurei avera, the two middlemen of sin, right? In the body, the heart gets you interested, and usually what you see, you get attracted to, right? So you see something, so oh, that looks interesting. I want to try that thing. That's where attraction to negative things comes from, through seeing. In fact, the rabbis say that someone who's blind really doesn't have an evil inclination anymore, because the eyes really are the most powerful tool to get us attracted to evil. So if you have a look at the Hadassim, they're the shape of eyes. Yep, I hope you saw that. And of course, the final one is speech. That's the mouth. And we know that the Torah focuses so much on the importance of speech. We've got the idea that the two principal core mitzvahs in the whole Torah are learning Torah, which is with the mouth, speaking out ideas, and prayer, where we speak to God, right? And we've got the most damaging sin of all, which is a topic for another time, is Lashon Hara, which is gossip and slander, which is all done with the mouth. And you have a look at here, the shape of these leaves. Yeah, there are different types of willows, but this is the ideal type. So you actually see it's like got two lips there. So you've got a mouth with two lips. Hope you can see that there. Okay. So that's just one of the elements of Sukkos. There's loads of different ideas in Sukkos which represent this idea of taking evil and sanctifying it. So the idea is we take all the forces within us of evil, we bring them together and we shake them, we bring them up to God, say, as if we're offering like a sacrifice, sort of, not really, but it's the idea of symbolically, it actually does something spiritually. There's a reflection on the spiritual level when we do all these actions. We actually bring certain lights into the world every time we shake it in certain directions. All to do with the nature of these, the spiritual nature of these physical things, which is what we're talking about today. We've got the physical objects, but there's also a neshama level on the fifth dimension. Within the esrog and within the lulav, there is a spiritual reality which goes very, very high. And when we're doing something down here, it activates certain spiritual energies up there, which help connect us with God, bringing the light of God down into the world through our hands, through the objects we're holding. So Sukkot is the idea of total joy, of connection with God, that we're not just like being good because we've got to, like the Yom Kippur. We're being good because we love God so much, and we take something physical. Come on, join us. Come. Oh, a nice piece of food. Come, like a little bit esrog. Oh, the heart, desires. Fine, take part of it. The idea of the Arovos represent the evildoers in the Jewish people. We bring them together with all the other three species which represent scholars, generous people, etc. I'm not going into it now. The idea of taking the four species and elevating them. It's the idea of elevation. So if you have a look at it, we have, not that one. Here we go again. So we have, in the Jewish calendar, we have these 5 levels. We've got the whole year, we're asleep. God wants us to get from the level of complete evil. That means you're not even aware you're doing the wrong thing. He wakes us up in Elul. Then we get to Rosh Hashanah, we get the level where, wow, I actually feel I'm conquering the evil. I've actually got it under control, right? You've got that tension there, but we're in control of the evil. Then we've got Yom Kippur, where we actually totally dominate evil, and the evil can't even speak up. And then we've got the final level, where we let evil out of its cage, so to speak. Satan could come back, but he's just going to be helping us now, because any physical desires, we're just going to transform into ways of serving God. That's Sukkos, which is a bit of a shame doesn't have it there. Okay. That's one way where we see the 5 levels of this fifth dimension, the 5 different levels of going from complete evil, and then we get to the level of complete righteousness. And then what happens in Cheshvan? So remember, from here, between this time and here, we've grown. We're a new person now. So now, compared to next year, what we can achieve, we're sort of like, we started off, let's say, over here. Can you even see that? Let's say we start over here. Forget about the calendar. I'm just showing you with the arrow. Right? So we go, this is Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos. Now we're here. This is the rest of the year. Yeah, so the rest of the year, now we're like this. And then the next year's Elul. We start growing again. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos, and we get here. So the second year was actually quite good. We jumped three rows there, right? And then it keeps going, and we keep growing. And after 5-10 years, then we look back and say, "Wow, I was down there. Look where I am now. That's incredible." Okay, there's another very nice one I heard also from Rabbi Kessin about the 5 stages of the growth in the agricultural cycle of the year. Whereas in winter time, now we can look at the other half of the year. We look at winter time. People plant the seeds sort of in Mar Cheshvan, the rainy season, which is usually October, November, around then. We've got Hanukkah, which we just had. That's just before winter starts properly, right? And then we've got Teves and Shavat. Okay. Now, the way this works is that there's a festival called Tu B'Shvat, which is the New Year for fruits. So we've got 4 New Years. We've got Rosh Hashanah is the New Year, the famous New Year. There's actually 3 other ones. One of them is Tu B'Shvat, the New Year for trees. It's got certain relevance to Jewish law. I'm not going into that now. It's quite complex. For those who have done the Gemara and Rosh Hashanah, tell me if you understand it. It's very complicated. But anyway, the New Year for fruits is Tu B'Shvat. Tu means Tesvov, which means the 15th. B'Shvat, you can see the word Shvat there. Shvat. So it's just called the 15th of Shvat. In Adar, we've got the Purim story. This festival of Purim. That's the one where we conquered we survived the Persian extinction plan of Haman. And this was meant to be as a punishment for eating at the feast of Achashverosh, and the Jewish people shouldn't have done that, and then they fasted. And we spoke about this in terms of the 4 exiles, this idea of this exile corresponds to the lowest of the 4, the physical soul. So therefore they fasted, and the way we celebrate Purim is we transform the physical desires into something good. So we actually have commandments to do with eating and drinking, even getting drunk on Purim. Then Passover, this is probably the most famous, everyone knows this one, the story of going out of Egypt on the 15th of Nisan. That's where the first day of Passover, that's where the smiting of the firstborns happened of the Egyptians, which is the final of the 10 plagues, and the Jewish people went free. And then you have Shavuos. Shavuos is the festival where we actually got the Torah. Okay, that's where God revealed himself to us at Mount Sinai. That's the basis of our whole religion. This is the key moment, or the key day, event in all of Jewish history. This is what makes us Jewish people. God giving us the Torah and communicating directly with us. It's never happened before. And not since. God spoke to a whole nation. Right, so how does this work? So when you plant something in the ground, let's say Cheshvan time, the seeds are basically you don't see anything happen. You don't have any possibility of the plants growing or anything like that. Right? Things are happening under the ground, but on the surface, from what's visible, there's nothing happening. Then, right, so that's the idea of complete evil. That means there's no possibility of growth or sprouting up, or right. Then you have Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat, what's special about Tu B'Shvat is that the fruits aren't here yet, but you see the beginning. You see a glimpse. You see the glimpse of the fruits are starting to bud. Oh, there's a change. There's still hope. Do you think that it's just dead, desolate land? Right? It's just, if you go to past the farm in the winter time, it's just brown. You just got like just the earth there. The trees, no leaves, no fruits. And then you get to Shvat, things start to change. You see the seeds starting to push up and to grow, the sprouts pushing up at the earth, trying to break through. So that's the idea of these lower two stages. The stage where everything is dead, where you're emotionally dead, you don't feel any connection to spirituality, right? Then you have Tu B'Shvat, there's hope. That means you've broken through the shell of evil, of death. That means you're a person's a Rosh Hashanah Gomer. They're evil, or they're wicked, but not completely. There's still hope. They still have a bit of regret. There's still a possibility that you can fan this tiny flame, and it can become something good, and the person can eventually be a very righteous, holy person. So that's represented by the trees starting to bud, and the fruits starting just to appear for the first time. This is before the blossom stage. Then you've got Adar. Then, of course, you've got the fruits start to carry on growing. And then you've got the blossoming stage, which happens in Nisan, which is when Passover is. And then finally, at the time of Shavuos, you've got the fully grown fruits, where we bring the fruits to the temple, the first fruits. And right, so those are the 5 stages. So how do they work out? How do they work out in terms of us? So we've shown the 5 stages of agriculture. You've got nothing growing. Then you've got a bit of the shoots sprouting out, the fruits starting to bud. Eventually, then you got close to blossoming. That's in Adar. That's around Purim time. Then the blossoms are there, and the fruits will actually start to be visible now. They're properly starting to grow. Depends which fruits. Or at least on the grain. If you look in the fields, you see that it's ready. It's almost ready to be harvested. Some of the grains have already fully formed by Nisan, by Passover time. Then when you get to Shavuos, then like wheat fields, barley fields, it's all fully grown. It's time to harvest it. That's the idea where you've come to the completion, to the zenith. So that's what happens spiritually to the Jewish people as well. Throughout the winter, we've also got this sort of like silence, this sort of quiet months. Yeah, it's a good months to be learning Torah, because don't have to worry about all the festivals like we do. Right, working on ourselves quietly in the dark of night. Right, with the dark nights. Then you get Shavat. That's already sort of late winter, sort of February time, early March, where things start to sprout. Right? That's the idea that, we've got hope. So just like Tu B'Shvat represents the fruits, the new fruits are starting now, that we can actually start to bring down certain lights of redemption. And then we finally have an example of redemption, which is in the Purim story, which is in Adar. Like we say here, Adar. We've got the Purim story here. Yep. That's actually a story of redemption. So that's sort of like the middle stage. We're still in exile. So there is evil there. But within the exile, we conquer the evil Haman, which is a representative of evil in the world. He was trying to wipe out the Jewish people, and the whole story in the book of Esther, it got turned on its head. Then we go to the 4th stage, which is Passover, Pesach. That's where we actually got taken out of the land of Egypt, and we were brought onto an extremely high spiritual level. That's the idea of, we're not just in exile, but we're surviving in exile comfortably, like the Beinoni, like the middle person who doesn't give in to evil. He dominates over the evil, but the evil's really there trying to attack him. Passover, we're on such a high level where the evil's got no hope anymore. It just gets destroyed, which is what happened with the Egyptians. The Egyptian firstborns and their idols, they all died and they got destroyed. And the Jewish people, we know in the Kabbalistic works, it speaks about the Jewish people were temporarily on an extremely high level called the 50th level, which is a level which transcends nature. Right? So temporarily, then it got brought down. So we've actually achieved on Passover, a reality where we're totally dominating over evil. Evil's defeated, basically. Then finally, you've got Shavuos. Shavuos is the fifth stage, where we get the Torah. The idea of Shavuos, again, each one of these festivals, you can speak for hours on them, but I'm trying to take best examples just to illustrate the point. The idea of Torah is the idea of what was the giving of the Torah? God, so to speak, came down from heaven and spoke in this world. It's the idea that this world is now a vessel for spirituality. And that's brought out very strongly with the whole concept of the Torah and the mitzvahs. What is the Torah? The Torah is there to say, this is how you interact with the physical world. On the 15th day of Tishri, you take a citron and a palm branch. That's what the Torah says. The Torah says, wear phylacteries. So you take some leather, you make it in a certain shape, do certain things, you write some scrolls, put them in the boxes. Boxes also have to be made out of leather. They have to be a certain shape. Again, they have to be sewed up with a certain type of sinews, also from a kosher animal. Right? Wear the tzitzis, like the four-cornered garment, right? You need the strings. So what do you do with sheep? Sheep, wool, strings, tzitzis. A cow, cow. It's got a hide, leather. We can use leather for the tefillin, right? Any mitzvah, right? You've got a ram's horn for the shofar, blowing the shofar, right? So the Torah is basically telling us how to take this physical world and turn it into vessels or tools to bring spirituality into the world. That means, like our whole lecture about Abraham, he didn't just stay meditating on a very high mountain in a monastery, like some of the other righteous people in his time, right? He went a level above that. He said, I'm going to use the physical world to sanctify God. And that's the whole lesson of the Torah and the mitzvahs. That's why it says that the patriarchs, they kept all the 613 commandments, even though they weren't given yet. Because they understood the idea of sanctifying the physical world with the spiritual. And that's only possible through the 613 core commandments which are in the Torah. And that's what we get on Shavuos. Shavuos is one of the festivals where we're commanded to have physical pleasure, right? That's why I think we have cheesecake. That's not the real reason, but tongue in cheek. Yeah, that's my way of interpreting it. Cheesecake's the most delicious food there is in existence. So we have that on Shavuos. For those people out there who don't know what I'm talking about, don't take me too literally here, because there's other more legitimate reasons. I'm just half joking here, but there is the idea of having to enjoy yourself physically on Shavuos, on Passover, on Pentecost, or what's it called here? Yeah, Shavuot. Good. Now we come on to the final part, which is the big finale. Is there's 5 stages of awareness of God in mankind throughout history. The first few thousand years, we're going to skip out Adam, whatever level he was on. But the first couple of thousand years of human history, the world was in a situation of the fifth level. No one was aware of God. Almost the whole world were idolaters. We had the whole story about the flood, the men of Sodom. You got the ones who built the Tower of Babel. It's just all. There wasn't any hope. Like the ground was just like dead. There's nothing sprouting up here. There's no hope for spirituality in the world. The first 2,000 years until Abraham came along. Abraham, ready, that's a second stage. There's hope for the world. You've got someone, you've got a spark. You've got one person, Avraham or Ivri. Abraham, the Hebrew. Ivri means, Ava means a side. So Ivri, he was the one on one side of the world, and you got everyone else on the other side of the world. So, but at least that's similar to the process of the growing of the produce, where the earth seems to be completely barren, but then you've got just one little plant sprouting its head above the surface. You've got some hope now. There's a bit of hope. Tu B'Shvat. Yeah, that's Avraham. Then, that's the idea of awareness of God, but only intellectually. Yeah, in your head you can work out God's existence. That's what Avraham did. There weren't any open miracles in the time of Avraham. The miracles which he had miracles, they were much more hidden. Then you have the miracles in Egypt with the Jewish people. There were slaves in Egypt for a couple of 100 years, and then eventually Hashem brought the 10 plagues to punish the Egyptians and to restore the Jewish people spiritually. So what's going on there? Are you aware there's a God? The first 2,000 years, there's no awareness of God. Until Abraham came along. Okay, there's a bit of awareness of God now. Yeah? Intellectually, you can prove it intellectually, but not experientially. Yeah, the evil is so powerful that, yeah, it could be a God. There's potential for there to be a God, right? But you don't sense it, you don't feel it. When you have open miracles, it's clear that there's a God running the world, right? So in the 10 plagues, God was showing, forces of nature. I'll show you what forces of nature really are. Right? They're just something I usually use. I'm not going to use them now. Yeah, let's make ice and fire come together. Right? Let's turn water into blood, but only for some people, and as soon as someone else takes it, it's actually water. The Jews drank it, it was water. You have 2 straws in the cup, the Egyptian would be drinking blood, the Jew would be drinking water. Because for the Jew it was 100% water, and for the Egyptian it was 100% blood. It was a paradox. That's clearly, there's no nature anymore. So you really showed that the forces of evil, or the forces here, it's not really evil, it is, but it's the aspect of evil of lack of knowledge of God. So whereas in the time of Abraham, at least there was a potential to know God, right? But really the forces of evil were telling us something different. The evil was winning, right? When the 10 plagues happened, the 10 miraculous plagues, then we see clearly good defeats evil. That means God is the reality and everything else is secondary. That means there is a physical world, right? Because we're still functioning in a physical world. Our awareness is we're still living in a physical world, you know. But the miracles show us clearly, without any doubt, that there is a being which is running the world. That's the idea of the spiritual dominating the physical, but the physical still exists. Then you get to Shavuos, the 4th stage. Now we're saying it's the 4th stage, right? You see, it's very complex. You've got different overlapping patterns, depending on which frame of reference you're using. Shavuos is the giving of the Torah. That's the 4th level. the level where knowledge of God was not just understood, because there's something missing when you have open miracles. Open miracles, you can infer very easily that there's a creator and there's someone in control of nature and he's just manipulating it. But you have to work it out. It's quite easy to work out. Yeah, you got good and evil. Which one's right? Well, this one's obviously going to win. Like we say, the person in the third stage, he always beats evil. He never gives into it. But there's always a temptation. There is the reality of it. The fourth level is the righteous, the tzaddik she'eino gomer, the incomplete righteous person, where evil is totally subjugated. Right? So this means that the knowledge of God is so powerful that it's impossible for there to be evil now. It's impossible. Because the awareness the Jewish people had at Mount Sinai was there's only God. He's the only power in the universe. And really, he's the only real reality in the universe. We're just a totally different category of temporary existence or existence which in our plane we exist, but on the general picture, the only real existence is God. From his point of view, if you want to put it like that. So the idea of Shavuos is we reach this fourth level of perception of God, where you don't have to work it out anymore. It's self-apparent. It's automatic. That's the idea of the Jewish, it says about the Jewish people, Roi Mesakolos. They saw the noises. What do you mean you saw the noises? Sound is something which, I hear what you're saying, I understand. I don't see the thing you're talking about. It's not clear, but based on what you're saying, I can work out what you're trying to show me. I can work out there's a God from the open miracles. That's the third level. That's hearing. Seeing means there's nothing to talk about. Remember, we spoke about this in the Hanukkah lecture about the difference between the Jewish way of looking at things and the Greeks. The Greeks in the dark, they work things out. Light, the fourth soul over the third soul, is the idea of just seeing with the light of the first day. You just know. The Jewish people didn't have to remind themselves or work out God's existence. They knew it intrinsically because God spoke to them directly in their minds, in their hearts. It was an experience. So things which usually you have to hear, you see. That's the idea the Jewish people saw the voices, they saw the noises, they saw the thunder, so to speak. Right? This is all in Exodus chapter 20, 19 and 20. Finally, right, you got the fifth level. But the thing is, after the giving of the Torah, we went back down to the third level from the second one. Yeah, after this experience where there's no doubt, then you go down to the third level where there's constant miracles happening in the wilderness, and they go into the land of Israel, and you've got the temple there, and the temple there's miracles happening every day, but these are miracles which happen within, which are clear miracles, but they are not the level of intrinsic awareness of God's existence. You just look in the temple, you saw it be raining, it wouldn't affect the fire on it, for example. The meat never went off, even in a hot country like Israel. The meat never went off, even though it was lying out there. You didn't see any flies in the place where they used to process the meat for the sacrifices. Yeah, the 10 miracles, which it says in the Ethics of the Fathers in Pirkei Avos, the 5th chapter there near the beginning. Right. So we went down from the second level to the third level. Then, with the exile, we even went down to the second level. Now we're in exile. We don't have open miracles anymore. But we know we're much better than we were than the first 2,000 years of creation. The first 2,000 years of creation proved to me there's a God. I don't see any indication of God. But here we have history. The Jewish history tells us We know there's a God. We're not experiencing him now. We can't even show you empirically now through open miracles that he's here. Yeah, and now the world of evil or physicality or nature dominates. But we know deep down there's still hope. Because we know deep down we know there's a creator, and it's just a temporary situation we're in now. Then finally, let's get to the fourth and fifth stage now. Then when the Mashiach comes, the Messiah, it says in the Pasuk, in Amos, I think, Amolo Haaretz De'es Hashem. The whole world will be full of the knowledge of God, Kamaim Liyom Mechasim, like the water covers the seabed. What's that tell you? You don't have to work out there's a God anymore, right? Right? And you don't even need open miracles for it. It's just an intrinsic knowledge. People will be walking around, first thing they wake up in the morning, God, yeah, okay, God, absolutely obvious. Way more than even people who study Torah and do mitzvahs and internalize this knowledge now, that the reality of Hashem, it's like darkness compared to even a simple person, right? It doesn't matter Jewish or non-Jewish. When Mashiach comes, the level of knowledge of even the non-Jews, even the most basic person who's not connected with spirituality at all, he'll know about God much more than the holiest rabbi does today. That's the idea of the fourth level. And that'll be literally the same sort of level as the revelation at Sinai, where you don't have to work anything out, you just know it. People's minds will be connected with the truth intrinsically. So what's the fifth level? The fifth level is, once we're on this level, we start transforming the physical world into spiritual world. If you remember the resurrection lecture, you'll see this idea beautifully straight away. It's the idea that we bring more and more and more spirituality into the world until the physical world transforms into a spiritual world. Time transforms into timelessness, into infinite time. The body transforms into a soul, basically. It becomes one with the soul. That's the fifth level. That's the idea where you've got the transformation. You're not just, you haven't just destroyed evil and ignorance of God, as we do in the fourth level when Mashiach comes, where there's no possibility in people's mind that God's not in control. The fifth level is, now we take all the physical aspects of creation and even the body. That's what the Pasuk says, Ro kol bosor yachtov ki pi Hashem dibar. I can't remember where that is. It might be in Isaiah and Yeshaya. Might be in Zechariah. It says, it could be Cheskel. I have to look it up. Okay, V'ro kol basar yachtov ki pi Hashem dibar, and all flesh will see, ki pi Hashem dibar, that Hashem spoke. Right? That Hashem's speaking the world into existence. But what does it say? V'ro kol basar, all flesh. It doesn't say kol odom or kol ish, each man or human. It says kol basar, all flesh. That means the flesh itself, the physical aspect of creation, will be able to be aware of this aspect of Hashem's reality. That's the fifth level, right? The transformation of even the physical into that level of the spiritual. Okay, I think that's enough for that. It went on quite a long time there. So let's just recap very quickly. We've got 5 levels. The level of, in the dimension of good and evil, the lowest level of the 5 levels is complete evil, where goodness doesn't even factor in. There's no goodness there at all, right? There's no awareness of God. There's no goodness in the person, right? There's not even a hint of he's not even like an animal. There's no hint of any usefulness in his evil. Then you've got the second level going upwards, where there is a reality of evil, but the power of good has come in a bit, and it's fighting with it, and the evil will probably usually win. but sometimes the good might win, right? As you travel up there between stage 5 and stage 3, yeah, here people will be almost doing the right thing almost all the time, right? Then we get to the third stage, people are always going to be doing the right thing, but they'll have that battle the whole time. It's just they've worked out ways to constantly beat it. That's the idea that spirituality is winning now, but evil still exists. The fourth level is where the spirituality starts to overtake evil in such a way where the evil loses its own separate existence. It gets squashed and dominated by good. And the fifth level is the spirituality takes the evil and transforms it into good. Okay? Those are the 5 levels of the 5 basic levels of the axis of good and evil. And of course, it's an axis, it's a sliding scale, but you've got 5 key categories. You've got the 2 extremes, you've got the middle, and then you've got the sort of like the sliding scale between the top and the middle, and the sliding scale between the middle and the bottom, which is the second and fourth level. Thanks for listening, and have a good day. All the best.